the vision or whatever that Grandpa saw of his mother hoeing the garden.
Tell them
Oh.
what
Well, that
With
was,
your-
my grandpa wasn't involved with that. That was Daddy. Daddy had,
her grandpa she was talking about. Her grandpa she meant. Your dad.
well, over by, I can't think of the name, where the rice field used to be. And they had Canal Road. Canal Road originally came from the water at Country Van Bayou come to Daddy's rice field. And that's where accident happened, right along that
It was out there
canal.
by McNeese, wasn't it?
Huh?
Out there south of McNeese College.
It was closer to whatever the street's name, Common Street or whatever it is.
And the
I mean,
accident
it was out that south of town. It wasn't over on Highway 14.
Right, but that's a long ways.
Yeah.
the accident that you're talking about was when he hit his knee with that.
His knee with the sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Okay, she wants you to tell about when your dad saw the vision or something of your.
Well, during that time is when he saw a vision of his mama, and she was hoeing. That's all I know.
Wasn't she Catholic?
Who were we talking about?
Your grandma. His mama. Your dad's mama.
No, I'm talking about Grandma Guidry.
Oh.
We talking about Grandpa
okay.
Guidry,
Okay.
which
Oh, I was thinking. Okay, yeah.
he never was akin to the kids until later after he married my grandma.
But
And of course, her husband, I started to tell the story about being a painter on streetcars in Fort Worth. And they went up to, he became a carpenter, and he went up during a hurricane and repairing stuff. They got to drinking too much till Grandma run him away from there.
Oh.
And so he went to New Orleans, and that's when he bought
dresser.
the dresser with a round mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she was about 12 years old at the time. And okay. Anyway, after he was in New Orleans about 2 years, he went to California, and then died within about 3 years.
Mm.
George went out there to look at his
Well, I came across.
later on. Huh? What?
I came across his burial plot information the other day over here on Paisley Street. Opened the box and there was a document about his death and where he was buried in California and everything.
Yeah.
So that's what George went
So
on.
that's on paper.
What about when your dad said he died at the tabernacle and he was real sick? What was he sick of?
That same thing. He couldn't stand the pain.
Well, why was he at church?
He wasn't at church at the time.
Huh?
He wasn't at the church at the time.
Oh, I
He's
thought-
telling the story of his life like I'm doing.
Okay, and he was laying on the bed.
At Grandma's house. Grandma Gedry.
and
That's when he dreamed or had a vision
or had a vision or something, or
And
says it
hurt
happened.
so bad that he wanted to die. And about that time, I come around the house with the little wagon that had lights on it and a horn. I come around, and so that brought Daddy back to wanting to live.
But
Wow.
I'm talking about your daddy at some point, for some reason, said he died. I don't know if it was at that time.
All of this was that time.
I was
He said
thinking,
that the people from the church were all around his bed praying. And
he left
felt
his
him-
body.
He felt his body leaving, and he got
No, he
up
felt
to
his
the
spirit
top
leaving.
of the room.
And
He
what did
looked
he
down
do?
and he could see everything from
Above.
above. He could
Right.
see the people all around, see his body laying there.
Yeah.
And then what?
I don't know.
Why did he come back?
Because he wanted the kids. I was one of the kids that he wanted to live with.
Well, I'm so
That's
glad
right.
he did.
That's right. Yeah, I remember him talking about an out-of-body experience, but he didn't call it that. You know, that's what they call it now.
Yeah.
I believe that he was near death, and the Lord sent him back. Well, tell me about your wagon. Back then, how in the world can a wagon have lights? Did it have batteries?
It got batteries.
It had batteries that long ago?
Had a dashboard and it had batteries that pushed the button. It would make the noise.
Do you remember how old you were?
How what?
How old you were to have a...
How old?
Well, you had the wagon. How old were you?
About 5 years old.
Oh,
They had a Buick at the time, and when they came home for Christmas,
Who?
Buick had that wagon in the trunk. Trunk kind of square and down
Who came
at
home?
that time.
Who came home for Christmas? You said they came home for Christmas.
We all came to home to Christmas.
Well, who?
y'all all
I
came...
got the wagon.
Okay, but where was
what,
it? Do you-
What home did you go to? What home? Did they come to
Where-
your home with the wagon?
No, the grandma's house.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
They just went to
Grandma
that
was,
house.
house.
Daddy was sick at Grandma's house.
Okay.
Okay, who gave you the wagon? Your mom and dad? Or your grandma?
I don't know.
It wasn't Santa Claus. Your
I
mama
wa-
wouldn't
I
allow
wa-
him in the
I
house.
wasn't there. I don't know. It could have been. I remember going down that where that Canal Street is now, and going to the corner, and the corner would take you to Big Lake. Here I live on Big Lake Road now.
You're back there. Yeah, and your original house that you were born in is right off of Big Lake now.
That's right.
That's pretty cool.
But it is backwards. It turned it and made a big garage.
But I was gonna say they added on to it, right? They
Yeah.
added on to that house.
Yeah, they added on.
Yeah.
When you say backwards, are you saying they turned that whole house around?
Well, I don't know.
No,
That's the way it was.
no, because we looked at it where it was, there's where the porch was. They closed the porch
Pam was riding with us when they moved it.
That was fun chasing that house the whole time. Huh?
Right.
Oh, what he's saying is it's sitting at a different position than it was originally
The
intended.
front porch became the garage, and the garage became a further wider.
Uh-huh.
So the dresser you were talking about, is that you talking about what I would call the vanity now, the one that I repaired.
The one that you
Yeah.
repaired.
That
yeah.
thing must be 120 years old.
At least.
His mom was born in 1907, was it?
6, I believe.
See, but my dad was in 6 also then. So she was about 14. I'm 12 years old when he got to
Okay, so 14, so, it's
so
106, 107
I
years
got
old
the
anyway.
story written down underneath it there somewhere.
It's in pretty good condition. After you got a hold
Well,
of it.
I just saw it in the barn and I said to her, I said, what in the world happened to this thing? Because it was in bad shape. She said, a horse kicked it.
Yeah, Bobby had that horse. People didn't tell him that the horse was a wood chewer.
Oh,
And it was always chewing up the gates, wooden gates. And it got in the barn there. And I'm glad it didn't chew on that wood. But
Hell, he had it in his mouth. And
slam it.
he kept beating it up.
When we
He
went
sold-
to
he
look for
sold
that,
that thing.
Bobby bought it. They had one rope from over there and one rope from over here, holding them still.
But why didn't you
away
call
from
Dr.
the
Poe?
wood.
What?
Why didn't you call Dr. Poe? He'd have fixed him.
Yeah. He'd have gone, hold still.
But he does that in his dreams.
Anyway, University Place had right off of McNeese had that little airport. You go in the airport when it rained, like when you get caught out in the rain in the rice field, and they have the floor would be in squares opening up to air. So anyway,
Your dad just leased that property out there? He didn't own any
no,
of
he
it.
didn't own that.
And he leased property in Oak Park and raised rice there too. Because it used to be so low.
Well,
That's why it floods so much when
Kids
it
from-
rains around Memorial.
kids from high Mount come out and the straw stack, you know, they did stomp it over and made it, couldn't use the straw because it was rotten
Oh.
where people, they've been playing on it. But it was a big one, like that picture I got.
Yeah.
And he had horses and had the picture of that straw here. But anyway, he had as many as 5 horses on one hauling that straw.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't the same year that I'm talking about, but anyway, the picture shows him driving 5 horses on a wagon, haul wagon, I guess,
Yeah.
and see. Anyway, the horses, you can look at the picture sometimes, if Sean brings it back.
Mm-hmm.
But it showed Daddy driving those horses, 5 at a time at least, maybe sometimes more than that. But the horses was Louisiana Cajun horses, and they all were called pestle tails.
Is it because their tail was,
All I know, Daddy told
So
him,
was he pulling a hay wagon or a rice wagon? Or?
you know, they bring the rice wagon to the separator. Separator takes it, grain goes down, and the hulls goes up over there and build a haystack.
So were they all Belgian horses?
No.
You called them circus horses?
No.
Okay, so they were special.
Pistol from Louisiana.
Okay.
But they were a workhorse. They were a big horse.
Or were they just regular
No,
horses?
it's smaller.
Just regular, okay. Now the circus horses that you said last night, you told one of the names of the white one was Kate,
Kate.
but I forgot the other one.
Limburger.
Limburger. I was going to say Noodle Goosey.
Well, that's in Pennsylvania City.
That was can't think what I said. He was a big red Belgian horse, and Kate was a dapple gray. So they made a good team.
I bet.
What I said last night, I rode a Limburger out in the field, middle of the field, and slipped off of him, so I had to bring him back to my box I usually used. The box had Coca-Cola, had been used to carry Coca-Cola caps, and that we had bought or got the box from Coca-Cola Company.
So you used it to step on to get on the horse?
But I was at least 6 years old.
Oh.
Did you, at Christmas time, did you always have a Christmas tree?
Always at Grandma's house.
But you didn't put a tree up at your house?
No, it never was there at Christmas.
Well, Christmas Day, but the season.
They always put it up the day before, something like that.
Years ago, many years ago, not when I was growing up, but a lot of times people put Christmas tree up Christmas Eve and took it down Christmas night. I worked with a girl, and she would never put a tree up except she had 2 kids. She put a Christmas Eve, and as soon as they opened their Christmas present Christmas morning, she took it down.
A lot of work for.
It's a waste of money because she bought a real tree every year.
Yeah. Oh boy.
So did your tree at Grandma's have electric lights on it?
Yes.
Was
Really?
it the kind with the bubble lights?
I just surprised that they had
No,
lights.
the bubble lights came in after that.
I see.
The first time we had electric lights was when we moved to Omaha just before California, so I would have moved there probably 1944, 1945, and somebody had left lights in a box in the attic, and we were so excited. Lights, Christmas lights.
Did they work?
Yeah, they worked.
Because them old lights, when one light went out, they all went out. Then
Yeah.
you had to find out which light was out.
So we always had lights on the tree after that. But of course, when we moved to California, that was just before Christmas time. It was December 17th. We moved to California. And that's when we went on the airplane. Moved on the airplane. So,
It was a chartered plane, right?
yeah, it was right at the end of the war, 1946. And the war had just ended in September. And I think it was September, is that when the war
I
ended?
don't know.
That's about right because August 7th, the day he was born, was when the bombs went off at Hiroshima.
Okay.
August 7th, 1945.
I don't think August 7th.
I'll have to
The
look
Battle
it
of
up.
Yigo was August 7th, 1945.
Have to read it.
But I remember
Read up on it.
Daddy was telling us that in California, it was wintertime in Omaha, snow on the ground, cold weather. And he was talking about it's so warm out in California, you didn't have to wear a coat. And palm trees, and he was always drawing pictures of palm trees, and it so fascinated us. Have the long, tall tree, and then the fronds up at the top.
Okay, I found this on the web for what was the date of the bombing of Hiroshima, Japan. Check it out.
So anyway, when Daddy decided he's going to go out to California, he figured in this ministry, there's more concentrated cities out there, and he wouldn't have to travel so far to preach. He could get Southern California more places to preach without him being so far away.
You missed by a day,
So,
August 6th.
so
And
he,
then Nagasaki was bombed on the 9th.
Oh.
he looked into a moving van, got the price on that. We didn't have a car, 6 kids, so we'd have to get a moving van and a car to get out there. And it would take 3 days at least to get out
You were
there.
moving from here or from Iowa?
Huh?
Where were you moving from?
Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh, okay.
So he found out, I don't know how he found out, but Dad was always good at finding out strange stuff, that those bombers were not being used now because the war was over. So Omaha was a strategic air command, so they had thousands of them. So they were renting them out. They'd take all the seats out for what the seats you needed for whoever was human was going on it, put the furniture all in it, move it all at one time. So I still remember we left Omaha at 7:30 in the morning, cold winter day on December 17th. We flew.
What year?
Huh?
What year again?
1946.
Okay.
We first flew to El Paso, and that's where we ate breakfast. We got there about 10:30 and ate breakfast. All got off the plane, ate breakfast, and then went south first, and then straight west from there to Los Angeles. Actually, Long Beach, which is right by Los Angeles. So I remember going over the Grand Canyon and the Painted Desert, and the sight was so, here we were, never had been anywhere hardly.
Much less in the air, huh?
Yeah, and then in the air, and to see that. And I remember everybody say, "Oh, look out this window," and we'd all run over that side of the plane, look out the window, looking at the Grand Canyon and the Painted Desert, all the colors. Then back to the other side, and we had our dog with us, had a ginger or cocker spaniel, and she was so scared of the noise that she sat on one of the seats behind somebody all the time. Philip didn't have a seat to sit in, so he had a sack of sugar that is that, at the end of the war, you had all your rations. See, sugar was rationed out, and you'd get so many coupons for the amount of people that you had in your house. Like
The dole amount, over time.
Mm-hmm.
and so you would take your coupons and be able to take those coupons and be able to buy sugar because you had 50 coupons. You wouldn't, you'd pay for the sugar, but the coupons allowed you to get it. So we had the sugar left over, and of course that was valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's what Philip sat on, like a gunny sack full of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the pilot and the co-pilot. So we landed in Los Angeles, and of course there was a 2-hour difference, but it was 3:30 in the afternoon there. And I remember we got off the plane, and when they opened the door, we stepped out. Here there was palm trees all around the airport. And I remember all of us kids in unison hollered out, "Palm trees!" That was so impressive to us. And here was a moving van backing up to the airplane, and somebody else had rented a limousine that had a bunch of seats in it, so we all could sit in one car, and went off to Baldwin Park, which was, it seemed like a long ways, but actually it probably, maybe from here to DeWitt or DeQuincy, maybe Leesville, just an hour's drive maybe. And of course in California, they put decorations in the street, lighted decorations and around buildings and stuff. They didn't in the Midwest because all you had so much snow. But out there, that so impressed us. California, here was a few days before Christmas, and we saw so much Christmas stuff. The moving van got to our house, and the drivers put all the beds up that night, and we all slept on our own bed that night. Same day we left Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow.
How old were you?
Huh?
How old were you?
I was 8 years old.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive, being that was the cutting edge
Yeah,
of doing something like that for the first
Yeah.
time.
And so you just rented the planes?
yeah. It was cheaper to rent a plane than it was to rent a moving van and a car that would take 3 days, at least 4 days to get out there. And
It's a neat story.
That's a good story.
All those old planes now are kept in Tucson, Arizona. It is huge. I mean, it's just as far as you can see, planes.
really,
Yep.
They call it the
Boneyard?
boneyard.
it was pretty loud.
Yeah, those planes were.
Because those army planes, they didn't have a lot of insulation.
Right, well, they weren't meant for people, meant for bombing. Yeah, yeah, they were.
It got you from here to there.
I've flown in some prop planes that were very loud.
So how did y'all get down to Lake Charles? I like to hear Daddy's story on when he first saw y'all in Beaumont.
Well, Sunday we always, me and the Brunos, ride the horse that Albert too, and on Sunday. We got to Prairie Lake Road and Enterprise Boulevard. And Bill was telling me about getting a new preacher. Well, I was mad because Bill's daddy didn't go to church all that much, but he knew what was happening. So I was mad about that. So, anyway.
Because you were the first little baby born in Calcasieu Tabernacle, correct?
Oh, that was,
After it was built, yeah.
that was a long time.
Yeah, and then you grew up, and so that's why you felt like you should have known y'all are getting a new preacher, because you were so embedded in that church.
Come to find out, Mama's the one that wrote him a letter and tell him to come be the pastor.
Well, I'd give anything for that letter, huh? That'd be something.
We had lived in California 5.5 years, and that was the longest we'd lived in one place up to that time. Because we lived maybe 1 year or 2 years.
But he had been here as a speaker,
Camp meeting speaker.
Yeah.
So they knew about him, and they needed a new pastor.
The main pastor, the main speaker for the
camp meeting.
camp meeting
Was that the Beaumont camp meeting?
No, same organization, but this was one she went to, but in Beaumont.
Harry Hodge Church.
Yeah. Well, he had the organization.
Well, he had that camp meeting every year, and all of his satellite churches all over would come together.
Mm-hmm.
When Brother Potts came, he got it away from their organization, and we became a free church.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were controlling whatever church was going to do. They were real controlling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
So
always
Tabernacle pulled away from it.
there's always somebody trying to manipulate it.
My dad was holding a meeting, a camp meeting in Houston. So they took, between meetings, he took one weekend off. And he says, I'm going to take you to this pretty town over in Louisiana. So, because he had been over for the camp meeting the year before, or 2 years before, something like that. So I was 12 years old at the time. So we drove over to Lake Charles, and where the library is, there was a big old 2-story houses all along the street. They called it a boarding house, and they had a place to eat. You get a southern meal in the boarding house, and they'd set the meal on a long table, in bowls like you were sitting at a family meal. And that was the first time I had rice and gravy. We loved it. We thought that was, that was out of this world. So they had porch swings on the front porch. So after we ate, we were sitting on those porch swings, watching them. The Pioneer building, they were building it. And you could see, going up with it was under construction. And the Majestic Hotel was on the corner across the street. So anyway, we had to go back over to Houston then. So we stayed overnight in Lake Charles, went to a motel or something, hotel. And so Daddy thought he would stop at the camp meeting for the afternoon service. So we did. So we filed in with a roll full of girls into the sanctuary.
This was in Beaumont.
Mm-hmm.
In Beaumont, yeah. And the way they had their balcony, I don't know how the seats were positioned up there, but the auditorium was long and the balcony was long that way, all open in the middle where you could look down on the congregation. What position was the seats with the balcony?
It was frontwards.
They was front, but I mean, they'd have to be little short rows then, because the auditorium wasn't that wide. Anyway, that was just a thought that went through my head. I'd never thought of before to that. So you take it from there. You were over the camp meeting with your mama, and you and a bunch of boys were up in the balcony.
Yeah.
When here comes somebody with a whole row full of girls.
Yeah, and I had seen them before.
Fresh meat.
How old were you?
Well, if I was 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, it'd been 17.
Oh, no
Just
wonder.
old enough.
No wonder you were looking at all those girls.
So tell them what your impression was.
Well, to myself, I said that I believe I'll marry that woman, that girl sometime.
You said out of all of them, why don't you tell the story the way you've been telling it all these years? She's trying to get
I don't know.
You told, well, of course, maybe it was the story you told me.
And what
He
is
said
that?
out of all the girls, he he picked me out, and he said, "Whoa, someday I wish I could marry somebody that looked like that." And he was so impressed by it.
Yeah, it's nice.
He said he couldn't take his eyes off me. He had to keep watching me.
Oh, he was right
Did you
down
know-
below me.
Did you notice him? Did you notice the boys up at the balcony?
We usually noticed any boys anywhere, driving along in the car. With 5 girls, was always picking up a boy. Boy, he's good looking. Let me take her right here. But we had no idea. About a year and a half later, where Daddy got the letter in California inviting him to come try out for pastor. And I remember him talking to Mom about it. We heard him talking to her about it. And he tried to put it out of his mind, but it wouldn't. It just stayed on his mind. And I don't know how it came about that he came down and tried and came back and said, "We're moving to Louisiana."
So this was before he ever went in the mission field.
That's what.
Yeah.
Was before he ever went on the mission
Oh,
field.
Foreign,
Yeah.
foreign,
Yeah.
didn't develop until after that.
1951. May of
Okay.
1951 is when we moved down there.
Anyway, on my side of the story, we had Sunday school, and so I was looking around for some boy that could come ride horses with us on Sunday, but I didn't see nothing but little Philip.
Yeah, he was the first Sunday the new pastor was going to be there. He was hoping that he had a son so he could run around with
Right,
him.
right.
So I was second choice.
Oh, man. So when she came into the church, didn't you say you recognized her right away?
Well, I saw him come in the
But I mean,
door.
you recognize me, the one from Beaumont.
Yeah, well, I figured it was about my size, age or something.
She's never been your size.
I'm sorry.
I sure I was only 108 pounds. So that first Sunday we were at church, that Sunday night, Shirley and I both had our eye on him. And I heard Shirley asking Mama the next day, and Mama was in the bedroom combing her hair. And she said, "How do you know when a guy likes you?" And Mama said, "Well, I guess it's when the first time he asks you out on a date or something, that must be the one he likes." And she didn't know what Shirley was talking about. That next Sunday after church, he asked me if I could go out for a Coke with him and a group of other people. And we asked Daddy and Mama, and they let me go.
Because
So I was-
Shirley was there.
But
Two
you
of
were
them
only 12,
together.
right?
Well, no, I was-
First year we dated, we had to go just with somebody.
Right.
I was 13 when we moved here in May, but 2 months later I turned 14. I was 12 when he saw me the year before
That's right.
in Beaumont.
And so could you go out for a Coke? Did you go out for a Coke?
So he liked me better.
Now, if I remember right, as a little kid, you were saying that you were smart enough to figure out that if all the girls were piling into his car, you would hang back till you were the last one to get in.
He had a what do you call that?
A coupe.
A coupe.
Coupe.
Only has two doors, but you slip the seat up, and
Yeah, the back
get in the
seat,
back
yeah.
seat. Well, the back seat was gone. See, he had bought it out of a junkyard and fixed it up so it would run. So that's what we
Daddy
started.
did that.
And so the girls were all piled in the back. There were probably 8, 10 of them in the car.
We had a
And
birthday
so
party.
he filled up the back seat, where the seat was, the back of the car was ready. And so then they were getting in the front seat and they were crawling over the driver's side. And of course, that's when they had the seat all the way across. So there was already 2 girls in the seat. So I hung back because I figured I'll be the last one in and I'd be sitting next to him then. And that's exactly how it worked out. I let them get in first. They didn't notice that, of course.
Did you notice her maneuvering, or were you just overwhelmed that many people were getting in your car?
I'm not sure.
It was shifting gears, and every time
I know I held back, and then when I wanted her to come in, when she got in the driver's seat, so I come into the door.
And every time he shifted gears, his elbow would poke me in the ribs, and he was so embarrassed. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He was so shy. He was so embarrassed.
Oh.
We have a lot of our life story. Cody interviewed us, you know. It's on my computer.
On your computer?
On favorite places. We talk for about an hour.
On the AOL that's giving you trouble right now?
The what?
On the AOL that's giving you trouble right now? Do you mean that favorite place?
Yeah.
You still have trouble with it?
Well,
Not tonight.
that program won't work, right?
What program?
AOL won't open. Your AOL
At
won't.
all?
Well, maybe after we hook it up and just rest it for a few weeks, maybe it'll.
Could it be something about that 99 cents a month?
Nothing to do with that. I think that we'll probably have to erase the program and then go back in. But all your information is stored in the cloud, not on your computer. But we do need to pull that off so we can save that. Well, that's an interesting story, and I'll keep this for our generations to look at. So this was the story of Naomi and Naomi Plotz, who married Mark Kingham. And y'all have been married how many years now?
68.
It'll be 68, or is it?
This
Yeah,
November?
it'll be 68 November.
November 16, 1953.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8, yes.
All right.
67 and a half years.
Lake Charles, Louisiana.
February, March, April, May. In May it'll be half a month.
First time was Beaumont.
Yeah, first time Beaumont. And today is March 2nd, 2021.